Before I read the chapter, I just wanted to give a little preface about the number of the chapter. As many of you know, I'm very interested in numerology. It's one of my favorite subjects, and I don't think there's any accidents in the world. And I don't think that today I chose chapter 33 for the discourse or the homily. The number 33 is a complex number, and what that simply means, it's more than a single digit number. So when you take 33, if you want to turn it into a single digit number, you just simply add the 3 and the 3. And what you get is the number 6. So 6, as many of you know, is a very, very powerful number. It is, first off, the number of man. I don't know if many of you realize that, but a lot of, especially in the Christian traditions, but also the Jewish tradition, they talk about 6 being the number of man. And why is that? Some of you may be asking yourselves. Well, I have the answer to that question. Number 6 is the number of man because in Genesis, in the Old Testament, which is followed both by Christians and the Jewish tradition, on the 6th day, man was created. And so that's why they often call 6 the number of man. But 6 is also the number of the Christ. And if you look at how the number 6 is drawn, you can see that. It might be a little clearer for people. So you take a 6 and you draw it down in an arc, and then you make a little circle at the bottom, right? So what that means is spirit coming down and manifesting, which is the circle, in this physical plane. Which is symbolic of the Christ Spirit coming down, the only begotten Son of God, and manifesting in the physical plane, which is why the number 6 is also associated not only with man, but with the Christ. Now, I learned something this morning, which I never knew, and I hope this will be interesting to other people as well. I looked up the number 6 because I wanted to see if there was any I wanted to see what the mathematicians thought about the number 6. That's basically the reason I looked up the number 6. And I found out that in mathematics, the number 6 is a perfect number. It's actually called a perfect number, which when you take that and think about it in the spiritual sense, that makes a lot of sense. Man is created in God's own image, in God's own perfection, the number of man. And then you have Christ, the only begotten Son of God, God's perfection, gifted to humanity to show them the way off the circle of rebirth. So why is the number 6 a perfect number? Now this part, I'm not a mathematician, so I will explain it to you as best I can. But as I understand it, if you take all of the whole positive numbers, the divisors is what they're called, into 6. There's 3 of them. There's 3, there's 2, and there's 1. And if you add those 3 positive whole divisors up, what do they equal? 6. That's why 6 is called a perfect number in mathematics. But it doesn't end there, people, because 6 is also the very first perfect number in math. And I like to think about that in spiritual terms in the sense that when Christ came, he said, yes, I've come, I've shown you the way, but I am not the only one to do this. All of my powers will be added unto you. So although 6 is the first perfect number, everything that comes after it can be just as perfect in Christ's own words. So I wanted to share that since we're talking about chapter 33 of the Tao, because for me it was interesting, and I hope that it has some significance to you as I describe the verses of chapter 33. There are 4 verses of chapter 33 of the Tao, and I'm going to read all 4 verses first, and then go back and explain each one of the verses. Knowing others is intelligence. Knowing yourself is true wisdom. Mastering others is strength, Mastering yourself is true power. If you realize you have enough, you are truly rich. If you stay in the center and embrace death with your whole heart, you will endure forever. So let's start with the first verse of chapter 33. Again, it's knowing others is intelligence, and knowing yourself is true wisdom. So this makes a lot of practical sense to me. A lot of people, they don't necessarily have to be spiritual people, can know a lot about human behavior. Scientists study human behavior. I like to think of poker players as masters of human behavior. I don't know if anybody watches the World Series of Poker on television. It's on a lot of different channels, but those people really do know how to read other people and what the tendencies are and habits are and conditioned reactions are of the other players. And it's through what? Observation that they learn about other people. The Tao says that if you know about other people, then that's intelligence. I actually think you only need a modicum of intelligence to know about the habits and conditioned reactions of other people. It's simply through observation, like I said, and you just watch what they do, and predictably humans will act in certain ways given certain circumstances and conditions. That's also how magicians, by the way, fool us with sleight of the hand. They know how our mind and our eyes perceive things, and they know how humans react to certain situations. And so with that knowledge in hand, they can deceive us with magic. I'm not suggesting up here that magicians can't be spiritual and that poker players can't be the most spiritual person in the world. I'm just suggesting that you don't have to be spiritual to know a whole lot about the human condition. So what the Tao says basically is, knowledge about other people, that's great. But what's more important? What's wisdom? Wisdom is knowledge of yourself. And that makes a lot of sense too, right? Think about what you are. We are the source of everything, right? We are one with God. If God is the source and we are one with God, we are the source of everything. I like to tell people this, even if you don't believe it, even if you're subconsciously doing it, everything in your environment you have created. Every situation, every person, everything that you're dealing with, you have created as a co-creator with God. And so what the Tao is saying is, if you go within and you realize that the entire universe is within you, everything about the universe, all the particulars of the universe, that is where true wisdom lies. And that's why the mystics of every tradition, and I don't care what religious tradition it is, they tell you if you want to know about the universe, what do? They tell you go within. So that's the first verse of chapter 33. The second verse is, mastering others is strength, mastering yourself is true power. So this is a similar concept. It doesn't really take a whole lot to master somebody. You can be the worst, most evil person in the world and take mastery over other individuals. There's a whole line of very, very bad leaders who were responsible for much destruction and much death, like Stalin and Pol Pot and Hitler, and you can go on and on and on. And they took power over others. Adults often take power over young kids. They're physically stronger. They can physically take power over them. They can emotionally and psychologically and mentally take power over children. This is not a good thing. I'm just suggesting that it can be done. And so the Tao is basically saying that's what we call power, but it's not really power. It's not really what we're all looking for in this world. In order to have the true power of God, it's going within. Once you know yourself and you can master yourself, you can master anything. So just take a moment and think about that. If you can master yourself, you can master anything. How many of us are truly masters of ourselves? I would say very few. I would say that most of us are here going through this reality that we're going through, living through this duality because we have not mastered ourselves. By the grace of God, He's giving us this opportunity to come to terms with who and what we truly are. And if we do have that realization and come to terms with that, that is when we achieve enlightenment. And that is when we can get off the cycle of rebirth. To master yourself, you'd have to be living in the present moment, every moment of every day. And how many of us can say that we do that? I was contemplating this morning, and I was reading through the Tao, and I was thinking to myself, if I'm 100% present as I read through this chapter 33, then I'll know everything I need to know for today's homily. Everything will come to me, and that's all I need to do. So as I'm thinking about that, I'm also reading the chapter 33, and then my mind starts wandering to other things I have to do during the day, and I'm like, I couldn't even do it for 3 seconds or 4 seconds or whatever it was. It is a very difficult thing to do, to live in the presence. Eckhart Tolle, I know, wrote a very well-known book about this. It's a book that I'd actually recommend. I'm forgetting the title right now. I apologize. If it comes to me later on, I'll tell you. But
Power of Now.
Power of Now. Thank you. Power of Now. In the present moment, you have every moment. The people understand that. If you're in the present moment, you're not bound by linear time. You're not going from A to B, which is what most people think about when they go through life. Most people think there's the past, there's the present, and the future. But if you're truly in the present, it's all there. It's all present. So you can fully and completely dictate your destiny if you live in the present moment. I like to call the present moment the pregnant moment because it has all possibility there of all creation for what you want to do with your life. So to master yourself, you have to, I don't know if I want to call it master of time, but you have to be present. And you have to control your emotions, right? If you're bound by your emotions and attached to your emotions, you have not mastered yourself. That's the lower triad, the lower realities. When we do the Rainbow Bridge meditation here at the Spirit of Lotus, and when we say lower, we're not talking about lower meaning it's worse or it's bad. It's just a concept so that people can understand as you move up, as you become more enlightened, as you become lighter spiritually, you're moving away from these, quote, lower realities, your emotions, and the other lower realities up into the higher realities of spirit. Emotions, they make you go to and fro, right? One of the hardest things to do that I sometimes practice at work is, see, with emotions you have attachment. Let's say you're at work like I am and I write a motion for a particular case and I think, oh, that's a mighty good motion and I hope I win. And then I send it off to the court and I'm attached to the results of that motion, right? And if I win, I'm like, yes! And if I lose, I'm like, oh, now I got to call the client and say we lost. So that's being bound by your emotions. That is not self-mastery. That is not being the captain of your own ship. All the great mystics say that you should be like the eye of the storm. You're in the middle of the storm. All of this stuff is going around you, whether it's positive or negative or neutral, swirling and whirling around you, and you are unchanged. Your outlook to a tragedy is the same as your outlook to something joyful and loving happening. You are that pond, that calm pond without any ripples in it. So that is what self-mastery is. That is why the Tao is saying that if you master yourself, you're really mastering everything. You're mastering this universe of duality if you master yourself. One of the positive things about this is you don't have to look out there for the solutions to stuff. You're walking around with it. It's in you. You spend time with yourself. Come to know yourself. Come to master yourself. I guarantee you'll experience the world differently. You will know true joy. You will have that. Once you are united with the source and you're walking around completely united with the source of everything that is, you understand who and what you are, nothing can affect you. And you know that you will be the captain of your divine destiny. The third verse of chapter 33 states, if you realize that you have enough, you are truly rich. How many of us, and I'm as guilty as anybody else, they think, God, if I just had that thing, then I'd be happy. Then you get that thing, and you're like, well, now I need that. And if I don't have that, I need something else. And it's this continuous process of thinking you're lacking, right? If you think you need something, then you feel a sense of lack. I actually think that one of the greatest sins, if not the greatest sins, is a sense of separation. Because if you did feel unified with the Godhead, you wouldn't feel separate, and you would never feel that you were lacking something. I hope that makes sense to people. There are studies, which I'm sure a lot of people have seen on Yahoo and other search engines. The wealthiest countries aren't the happiest. They don't have the happiest people. America is one of the, if not the wealthiest country in the entire world, and we are never at the top of the list of the happiest countries when they do those studies. You can go to some of the poorest neighborhoods in some of the poorest countries, and you know what you find? Some of the happiest people. Because they don't think they're missing out on anything. They don't feel like they are lacking anything. They feel like they have it all there. There's this song, I think it's from John Mellencamp, and he's talking about this guy who's sitting on his back porch, and there's basically like a railroad track running through his backyard. And he's the happiest guy in the world. He doesn't think that that's a bad thing. He thinks, hey, I've made it, I've got a home. He doesn't care that there's a big train running through his backyard. Whereas most of people would think, oh my God, that's the worst possible situation to live in. I couldn't possibly do that. I wish I had something else. So this sense of separation, which is the root cause of your sense of lack, derives from the non-awareness of who and what you are and where you come from. None of these things in this world, in terms of things, they are not important. Most people realize that, if they've had a long life and they're coming close to their death, they realize these things aren't that important. Have you noticed that when people age, they start giving stuff away? They don't need it anymore. Their pictures, their carpets, their fine china, their silver. You can't take any of that stuff with you. And they're coming to that realization at the very end. They're starting to at least appreciate, if not truly know, what's important in life. And then let's go to verse 4 of chapter 33. If you stay in the center and embrace death with your whole heart, you will endure forever. So let me read that again. I had to read this many, many, many times. If you stay in the center and embrace death with your whole heart, you will endure forever. So what does that mean? I have to admit, I really struggled with that verse of chapter 33. The conclusion I finally came to after, I actually spent most of the week, by the way, contemplating this particular chapter. And that verse, like I said, was the hardest for me. But in the end, what I truly believe it means is, what you're embracing is, you're embracing that this isn't real. This physical plane is not real. You're embracing death in the sense that you know that the physical dies. You're embracing that because you know without a shadow of a doubt that what you are in reality will never die. Your spirit has no beginning and no end. You were with God at the very beginning, and you will be with God at the very end, and in reality you are with God at all times. There's that famous saying, I don't know who said it, but we're not humans having a spiritual experience, we're spirit having a human experience. And to me that kind of best summarizes this last verse of chapter 33. When you embrace the fact that you are spirit, who is just for really a short time, a blink in God's time, an infinitesimally small moment in God's time, experiencing this physical plane. When you embrace that fact and really come to terms with who and what you really are within, you know, like I said, that you're eternal, never ending. Nothing can ever destroy you. We do come back. I believe in reincarnation. Some people don't. I do. This is God's gift to humanity. We're all evolving back to the Godhead, right? I'm a big believer in evolution. I've had conversations with biologists who say, well, evolution is the way. Once Darwin came along, that convinced me that I don't have to believe in religion any longer because now there's a scientific explanation for things. And I always say, I believe in evolution too. I am a huge believer in it. If evolution works on the spiritual plane, why wouldn't it work on the physical plane? We always talk here at the Spirit of Lotus about how we're evolving back to the Godhead, right? Evolving back to the Godhead meaning we are becoming more and more enlightened over time as we gain knowledge of our true self within.